So, welcome to the online course of analog communication. In this particular course, what we will be targeting is to give a undergraduate level introduction to the very fascinating subject of communication. So, we will try to see how information that is being generated and that can be transmitted to a distant user who can interpret whatever information has been transferred. So, this is what will be our target. Mostly we will try to see the engineering aspect of it, that means how to transmit the thing, how whenever we transmit we will be probably taking a media might be of any kind. So, how to combat the essential imperfection that are already there inside the media, and then how to receive the things. So, what will happen in the process we will try to characterize few things. The two building blocks of communication, one is signals, the other part is systems. So, signal is the information that needs to be transmitted, how that is represented, how we can represent it for the purpose of communication, to aid the communication, sometimes to actually transmit it through the channel, and then to combat the imperfection that are present in the channel. So, we will see that aspect. We try to see how the signals can be represented, different kinds of signals that has to be analyzed. So, all those purpose will be fulfilled in this course. The other part or other aspect will be the processing of the signal. So, in communication always there will be a transmitter at the end where the information is actually being transmitted, and the receiver where it is a distant again a system where the transmitted signal is received. So, we will also try to see what are the aspect of the system that actually processes those signals. So, transmitter might process the signal in a different way for different purposes. So, we will try to also characterize those systems, how they has to be designed, what are the design criteria, design parameters that are involved in it. So, we will try to see those things. Here in this particular course, this course is named as analog communication. So, you can already see that it will actually deal with the analog version of communication. So, there are predominantly two versions of communication for your information. So, there are analog communication and digital communication. It's mainly linked to the signal that we are transmitting. So, if the information signal is analog in form, then we call it analog transmission, and if it is discrete, it has discrete levels and it is digital in form, then we call it digital communication. So, in this particular course we will probably be involved in the earlier version of communication where the signal was all analog. So, we will try to deal with analog signals mostly, which is not discrete in values. The signal value will be probably ever varying over time, and we will try to see what are the methods to communicate. So, what we will see in the process of course. So, initially in the course we will actually deal with signals. So, mostly the deterministic signal, how the signal can be represented, what information we can gather through the signal, what are the parameters that should be looked for in a signal. So, all these things will carry out. So, mostly the deterministic part of signal analysis. Then we will try to see what are those characteristics of signals that aid us for communication, and then accordingly we will build systems. So, from signals we will try to build systems for effective communication. Then next we will try to see that if the signal is transmitted, there is in communication always you will see that is always there, that is called the noise. Noise might be coming in the channel through which the signal is being transmitted. It might be even coming from the transmitter where the signals are being processed by some systems, and system might introduce some noise, and heavily noise can come at the receiver, because there are systems which can introduce its own noise. So, noise is some unwanted signal that is being added to the your signals that has to be delivered. So, this noise is something which is completely random, and to characterize noise, because for communication we have to combat noise, we have to see how to filter out those unwanted signals, unwanted random signals. So, because it is random, so it is very essential that the random analysis of signals or signals which are characterized by random process, that needs to be very well understood. And then we need to also understand the system designing that can combat with those things. So, we will in the later half of the course we will also try to see how to really characterize a random process associated with that, how do we really do communication in presence of those random processes which are called noise, sometimes it is interference. These part also will be covered in this course. And from the system aspect, if we see, we will initially try to cover the first introduced analog version of modulation, which are called amplitude modulation. So there are different versions of amplitude modulation with carrier, double sideband, amplitude modulation with suppressed carrier, single sideband, vestigial sideband. So we'll cover all these things. We'll do once the random process is being introduced. We'll also try to do analysis in presence of noise, how they perform relatively to each other. So these things will be covered. Then we'll go to another version of analog modulation, which is called the frequency or phase modulation. So that, which is very famously known as FM modulation, thanks to Armstrong. So FM modulation, then phase modulation, PM modulation, that is also something we'll cover in this course. And at the end of the course, we'll probably also touch upon another version of analog communication, which is called pulse modulation. So this is something where means the signal is modulated through pulses. So there are multiple versions of that also: pulse position modulation, pulse amplitude modulation, and then pulse width modulation. So these things also will be covered, especially it will be covered in terms of signal modeling, then system modeling, then if there are noise, how do we really combat those noises, or what kind of performance we expect for different kind of modulation, what are the parameters that can be varied to actually improve them. So these are the things which will be in a nutshell covered, and probably will touch upon some of the basic aspects of multiplexing also, because whenever we talk about communication, there is point to point communication, that means from one particular point to another point, but there are also multiple points to multiple point communication, that means simultaneous communication. So that is called the multiplexing part. So we'll see two versions of multiplexing, which will straight away come from the analog modulation technique we'll be talking about. So one is called frequency division multiplexing, another one is called time division multiplexing. So these two parts will be covered at the end of the course probably. So in a nutshell, this gives you a brief overview and a very nice theoretical overview of the communication aspect and the associated signal processing part of communication. Thank you.